Hi dear friends, welcome to my channel. It's Dhare by Devraj. So let me start today's session with today class, fifth class. Before going to start this session, I'm requesting you everyone to please subscribe, like and comment our channel for more updates related to competitive exams, health education and numerology and related to jobs and more. I hope you guys are doing great. And let me open the newspaper, today's newspaper, which is very important for the point of examination. So, what preparing for the civil services and SSC, IBPS, UPSC exams, and other state exams, especially for them, the reading the newspaper is very important. I hope you guys would follow reading newspaper each and every day, and also to communicate, improve your communication in English. So reading is very good. It's a part of hard work to improve your communication in English. Let me start. Today's main page is that is rare pittas find a haven in Odisha. Haven in Odisha. Demand for same-sex marriages recognition is urban elitist weave center. Q4 an investment at all-time high of 14.56 lakh crore. Of this, private sector outlays amount account for 10.5 lakh crore. Total new investment project stuff free fresh peak of 37 lakh crore. Manufacturing sector surges from figures of previous three quarters. Nagaraju totals worth touches 1,614.5 crore. Marriage is considered an aspect of social policy of a nation across the world. It is within the remit of the appropriate legislature as the elected representative of the representatives of the people to define it, recognize it, and regulate it. And the choice not to recognize same-sex marriage is simply face it of the legislative policy. Jagdish Shettar leaves BJP for Congress, gets ticket for old seat. Army Jawan arrested for Batinda patricidal killings as he finds Mumbai Metro for seeking note to cut more trees. BJP denies a ticket to Ramdas and Limbavali in third list of 10 candidates. MTV's total worth touches 1,614.5 crore. 18,842 candidates filed their nomination papers for the May 10th Assembly elections after roadshows. As many as 198 are from BJP, 195 from Congress, 86 from JDS, 50 from AIP, and 17 from BSP. Ahead of Karnataka elections, government workers demand better pay and working environment. City topped digital transaction in 2022. CL for cheating people. CCB officials on Monday arrested a gang of persons involved in a rice pulling device cheating case. The accused Venkatesh Venkataramana, 44, Venkatesh, 47, and Somashekar, 47, used to lure people by using a rice pulling device, claiming to have radioactive properties and magical powers to attract wealth. The accused would take money in advance, promising to sell the device and would then escape. The accused had cheated many people in the state and accumulated properties, including SUVs, gold valuables, and cash. Several cheating complaints were filed against the accused in various stations. Number of visitors surges at BVP. After 24 years, Shettar does his Yopa. Jagdish Shettar not getting BJP ticket bears resemblance to an episode of veteran leader Shivappa rebelling against the party after being denied the opportunity to become leader of the opposition in 1999. Shettar, who has joined the Congress, alleged that BJP didn't treat him with respect. Nadda to visit Hubballi as part of damage control exercise. Shrikant Nagamarapalli to contest on JDS ticket. Rahul Gandhi tells people to give only 40 seats to 40% in government. Bahutva Karnataka releases report card on access to nutrients in state. LCNC demand HC notice to state and union governments on Swami's plea. Ambasamudram torture case. Balveer Singh booked 11 persons record statement. Initially, the TN government had transferred and placed the assistant superintendent of police Balveer Singh in vacancy reserve and later suspended him. What about this Ambasamudra touch? Let me read this news amid severe criticism from civil rights activists and some applause of the ruling DMK, as the Tamil Nadu police on Monday shed several weeks of reluctance and registered a case against suspended assistant superintendent of police Balveer Singh on charges of torturing suspects in custody in the Ambasamudram sub-division last month. He has been accused of damaging and uprooting the teeth of some suspects during interrogation at a few police stations and also assaulting a couple of men on the private parts. The suspects who were picked up by the Ambasamudram, Kali Daikuruchi and Vikram Singapuram police on trivial charges alleged that Mr. Singh, a 2022-2020 batch Indian police service officer, had damaged and uprooted their teeth after taking them to these police stations. Initially, the government had placed Mr. Singh in vacancy reserve and later placed him under suspension. The government had also ordered for an inquiry by Chandra Sharan Mahadevi, Sub-Collector Muhammad Subhi Shabi Halam. Subsequently, 3 inspectors of police, 2 sub-inspector and 2 special branch constables were also put in vacancy reserve. Later, the government chose to appoint IAS officer P. Hamuda, Principal Secretary, Department of Rural Development, to probe the allegations. She sat for an inquiry on April 10, but no one turned up to record the statements. When she commenced her 2-day inquiry on Monday at Ambasamudram Taluka office, 11 persons, including 8 victims and 3 family members, recorded their statements. Tirunelveli Superintendent of Police and Silambarasan could not be reached for his comments. His gunman, who attended the phone calls from this correspondent, said he was in a meeting with the Deputy Inspector of General of Police through video conference. The Tirunelveli District Crime Branch has registered the case under Section 506(1) criminal intimidation in 24 voluntarily acting by using dangerous weapon and 326 voluntarily causing grievous hurt by using dangerous weapon. SC allows Mahadani to visit Kerala, native Kerala. Kerala trained arson suspect highly radicalized police. Case of attack on CM posted for April 20. According to the police, there is a strong evidence against the accused to prove his radical background. Milma asked it for vamping brand to take on cooperative measures. This is also the fifth page. Chinese shenanigans on Arunachal Pradesh. Former ambassador, he is the Director General of the Manohar Parikha Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. Let me read this article editorial page promoting impunity, denial of note to prosecute harming men and in Ohuting massacre is disconcerting. For the third time in recent years, China's Chinese Minister of Civil Affairs on April 2nd made a provocative move by releasing new names for 11 places in Arunachal Pradesh under the fig leaf of standardizing geographical names in Zhengnan, a phony term invented by Beijing to claim that Arunachal Pradesh is South Tibet. According to media reports, these names include two residential areas, five mountain peaks, two rivers, and two other areas. In 2017, China had renamed six places that lie in Arunachal Pradesh. It had also standardized the names of 15 places in 2021, which had similarly included population centers, mountains, rivers, and a mountain pass. Taken together, hand on the basis of it, some of the places are located along the Panchen Tawang Jang Sela axis running down from the line of Arunachal control. Actual control. Others are near hold Buddhist pilgrimage circuits near taxing in Upper Subansri district, Menchuka Tatu Tehsil in West Siang, and still others towards the Loith and Anshau districts near Walang. Whether it is in the Himalayas or the East and South China Seas, China's depredations and unbounded irredentist claims are legion. In 2020, China gave names to 80 geographical features in the Pauses and Spratlis in the South China Sea, where China is embroiled in a maritime dispute with several states. In 1983, it had named 287 geographical features in the South China Sea. It began using the term Diaoyutai for the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea in the 1950s, even before raking up the Senkaku issue was with Japan. Often the Chinese modus operandi is to lay the groundwork through fictional renaming of territories, alien territories as a basis for sham historical claims, which are then pursued using the three warfare strategy of waging propaganda, psychological and legal warfare. China also struck a jarring note in the wake up of apocryphal exercise concerning place names in Arunachal Pradesh by naming several undersea beaches in the Indian Ocean, ironically using the names of Chinese musical instruments. China issued for the geographical name regulation in 1986 designed to regulate naming, renaming, and so-called standardization exercises. It introduced an amendments rule that came into force on May 1st, 2022. While these places while these places of legislation have mainly dealt with naming, renaming, and standardizing names within China. They also cover several alien territories claimed by China. It is instructive to recall two related developments. China enacted a new Coast Guard the law that came into effect on February 1st, 2021 to take necessary measures, including the use of force To safeguard sovereignty, China also passed a new law on the protection and exploitation of the country's land border areas that came into effect on January 1st, 2022. This unilateral step has the ID effect of converting the boundary dispute with India into a sovereignty issue. In the run-up from 2017 onwards, China launched the construction of dual-purpose villages, the so-called Siokong villages, in areas adjacent to the border with India. From Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, one can discern a new aggressive thrust by China temporarily thrust by China to emphasize its territorial claims, whether land or maritime. The government of India has consistently dismissed such shenanigans on China's part after the latest move by external affairs said that this is not the first time that China has made such an attempt. They will reject this outright. Arunachal Pradesh is an integral, inalienable part of India. Attempts to assign invented names will not alter this reality. China's bogus claim Indian industry. China's claim on Arunachal Pradesh is a bogus as can be. A reading of Tibet and its history by huge Hug Edward Richardson clearly says that the Qing presence in Tibet began to emerge around 1720 after Chinese intervention in the Internshine successive struggle following the death of the sixth Dalai Lama in 1683 to 1706. Therefore, there is absolutely no basis to the Chinese claim over Taiwan or, for that matter, any other part of Arunachal Pradesh on the flimsy grounds that is the birthplace of the sixth Dalai Lama. China, in any case, had no locus standi in Tibet at the time, but that has not prevented China from concocting a so-called historical claims with a retrospective effect. A study of the 1960 reports of the officials of the two sides on the boundary question reveals the vague, patchy and superficial nature of evidence proffered by the Chinese side in support of Beijing boundary claims. Arunachal Pradesh, formerly known as the Northeast Frontier Agency, is home to various tribes that have historically been a part of India's civilizational heritage. Most of its population has been historically oriented towards the Assam plains. The tribes that were in regular contact with the Hompo in Assam, including for the grant of rights to levy the Posha from the plains people in the adjacent areas. While some tribes, such as the Monpos, have professed Buddhism, others follow animistic practices. Some tribes practice a form of Vaishnavism, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Kalika Purana, the Vishnu Purana, the Yogini Purana, and the Kalidasha Raghuvamsha have references that give a clear indication of the inclusion of these tribal tracts in the collective consciousness and cultural moodings of ancient India. These sources have indications about the boundaries of the kingdoms of Pragjyotisha, and Kamarupa, whose limits appear to include the whole of Arunachal Pradesh, Shivalinga in Chiro, Parshurham Kund, and the temple ruins of Malinithan, which are connected to the legends of Parshurama, Rukmini, Bhishmaka, and Shishupala, show an ancient Hindu influence in the region. Some Muslims consider themselves to be the descendants of King Bhishmaka, and some Akas claim their descent from the king Baluka. Archaeological finds have unearthed silver coins and inscriptions in the Arabic script at Baluk Pong, linked to a Muslim ruler of Bengal. The architecture of many forts, such as those at Balukpong, Itha, and Bishmaknagar, built between the 10th and 16th century, is heavily influenced by the architectural principles of root construction found in the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Arthashastra. These forts were frontier force of the security system that was prevalent in the Brahmaputra Valley. There is no other comparable influence of any other culture, history, or Arunachal Pradesh as a whole. Today, the state represents the finest of India's cultural and civilizational heritage. Now is the time, perhaps, for India to not only reject Beijing's charade of giving Chinese names to places in Arunachal Pradesh, but also to assign Indian names to the places and territories under the illegal occupation of China and territories under the illegal occupation of China. Akshay China, for example, may be called Akshaya Chinha, which means an everlasting symbol of India. It is an indelible part of the Indian consciousness as per Charles Buddhist. It is and will remain an integral part of India. Let's go to the next editorial for a culture of cohesion to save hang lives on campuses. The road newspapers reports about hang students ending their lives in is disturbing. During the 2018 to 23 quennial, there were as many as 61 students fading away. In the Indian Institutes of Technology or IITs, the National Institute of Technology or NIT is 24, and the Indian Institute of Management for in the 2014 to 21 10 year, there were 122 cases in various higher education institutions. In both cohorts, most students were from the scheduled tribes, and other backward castes and economically weaker sections. Marginalization and deprivation are factors, but only also finds a wide spectrum of students. Campuses are now impersonal as spaces. The fact is that campuses have become large and impersonal places. Family support is dwindling as there are more nuclear families now with working parents who are unable to provide the kind of parenting and mentioning that giant families provide. Individualism is all pervasive in a social society. Consequently, early signs of emotional distress go unnoticed, unrecognized, and unaddressed. Generally, institutions are in a denial mood and prepared to harsh things up. They expect the situation to be dealt by the parents. Students in the emotional distress have at times been advised to spend times with their families. In institutions of higher education, the system is such that there is hardly any free and fair communication between students, their seniors, teachers, and the administration. Home from home kind of have an experience eluded students. Classroom interactions are classroom interactions are confined to academics with recurrent exhortations to students to be committed, dedicated and hardworking. Adding to that stress emotionally, distressed students are already under. Teachers may hardly have the time, the inclination, or even the expertise to notice and address any disturbing traits among their students. In any case, a highly formalized, standardized, and hierarchical structure can now be conducive to promoting congeniality, or even empathy. Consequently, students are deprived of much needed preventive measures. It is only when a tragedy occurs that actions are triggered, an inquiry, and then a prescriptions of remedial and preventive measures. That is it. Most campus suicides are attributed to academic pressures, family circumstances, personal reasons, different kinds of stress, financial distress, caste-based discrimination, and many different form of harassment. Many of the sources of distress lie outside the purview of education institutions and have their genesis in the large economic and societal contexts. Therefore, each of these regions must need to be addressed at their source by the government, society, institutions, parents, and their families. There are formal mechanisms in place to provide personal, cultural, and psychological counseling to students. Most of the IITs and IITs and the like have put in place are beginning to highlight and offline mechanisms to access personal counseling and therapies in a confidential manner. Apps such as those Sati and Mitra have also been launched to access their services anonymously. Most of these institutions have also organized awareness and sensitization programs for students. Yes, such centers appear to be deficient on many accounts. The oneness is on students in need to seek help. It is they who must seek an appointment. Another drawback is that they work most of the time during office hours and on working days and are often unable to respond in a prompt manner. One of the TIT's climbs and rightly so that it tries to help students as soon as possible and as much as possible. A few of them have arrangements with external agencies to provide psychological counseling. The fact is that institutions of national importance are in a much better situation than most central and state universities. The little information that is available says that they usually assign the task of counseling to faculty members are ready to embrace the idea of professionally trained counselors. Study in contrast. In comparison, universities in the United States have a dedicated counseling centers with a range of psychological services such as evaluation, counseling, consultation, and therapies, individual and group. They are accredited by the International Accreditation of Counseling Services and are manned by licensed psychologists, psychiatrists, clinical therapists, mental health workers, and social workers. The counselor to student ratio is carefully established through a combination of empirical analysis and the judgments of experienced counseling directors. In contrast, the psychological counseling services in Indian campuses are limited to providing some physical space in a corner of the institution with a limited number of professionally trained psychologists and physiotherapists. There are hardly any standards. One wishes that the approval and accreditation process of institutions also gives equal importance to this aspect of students' life as done for plural area. Faculty, books, and even computers. There needs to be a well-oiled life support system for many students. Counseling and therapies are as curative measures may be easy to strengthen and streamline. What is critical but most difficult is to create a conditions for forming an assimilative culture of cohesion and promoting respect for academic and socio-economic diversity. Institutions must deter and curb all forms of discrimination. However, also subtle and done even in jest. At times, inability to cope with academic pressure and get good grades is linked to the category and ranks of students. A few fringe elements on campus might be prejudicial about reservations in admission and differential fee policies. Cannot institutions be discreet about such sensitive information? Could they not evolve a code of campus ethics, prescribing standards and protocols of what can and cannot be discussed even in informal social settings? Social, economic, and cultural diversity on campuses and value, but only if they are sensitively nurtured and carefully harnessed. Sudan's strategy, the feeding generals should agree on a time bound transition to democracy, dealing with extreme heat. This was the editorial page reading. Just follow the same steps to read loudly the words which in the page, and then you come to know which is very effective, which is not very effective. Then you can practice each and every day, which you are not spelling the words. So I hope I would continue the next page to complete soon. Dealing with extreme heat and seizing a political opportunities, Chandrasekhar Rao has played his cards well by bidding for the Vizag steel plant. Jamnagar to Kanchipuram, mapping India's export hotspots. Bangla war crimes traced by Mayhind. Congress leader K.C. Venugopal meets Uddhava Hamid differences. Meeting comes in the wake up of efforts to unify the opposition at the national level and alleged cracks that have developed in the alliance in Maharashtra. The General Secretary says they are all together in fight against anti-democratic forces. CBI summons Abhishek Banerjee for questioning. Eat stroke death toll for 13. Opposition slams Sena BJP government for negligence. BRCM announces 4 lakh ex-gratia for kidnap victims. 8 speech. SC notice to Delhi police and police seeking FIR against Barack Obama. Ganwapi caretakers to meet authorities over Wucha facilities. SC grants bail to Trinamool Congress Saket Gokhale. Mumbai Metro fined for seeking no to cut trees. Manipur BJP MLAs camp in Delhi with grievances against CM Biren Singh. Government should immediately conduct a caste census, Congress Chief Justice PM. Shot trying to bring down Bengal government, Sri Mamata. Sadish Cross CM writes to PM seeking inclusion of higher quota bills in the 9th state schedule. 3-member SIT to investigate Attic killing. UPCM is patronizing criminals from his cash. Provide legible caveat charge sheet to Surjewala rules. Justice Joseph recuses from hearing plea against Goel's appointment as a CC. Russia seeks to right huge trade imbalance. The country wants to import manufacturing equipment, including machinery, from India to replace the West, says Deputy PM Denis Valentinovich Manturo and the EU of Russia-India Intergovernmental Commission meeting. Jaishankar says payments, logistics, certifications are really the key areas. Center to hold a conference to address home buyers whose they had to host summit on Buddhism. NCRT says reference on Ajad related in 2014 to 15. Pitas find new haven in Odisha districts. In the first ever census carried out in the Kendrapura and Jagatsinghpur, 179 of the nearly threatened birds were counted. 179 of the nearly threatened birds were counted. Information on their distribution, habitat, and breeding collected. Traits of righteous people. UK PM Rishi Sunak faces probe over vice business contest. Myanmar to free 3,000 prisoners in Buddhist New Year amnesty. French court acquits Air France Airbus over 2009 Rio Faz crash. US warship sails through Taiwan Straits days after drills by China. Kremlin critic Kara Murcha jailed in a Russian treason case for 25 years. Fighting rages in Sudan as civilian death toll nears 100. Parliamentary Chief General Daglo calls Army Chief Al Burhan a radical Islamist and vows to bring him to justice. The military blames the RSF for launching the attack caused by case by drone. Bangladesh to pay Russia in yuan for a nuclear plant. Extremists destroy Ahmadi place of worship in Pakistan. SpaceX postpones maiden test flight of the world's biggest rocket starship. March wholesale price rise close to 1.7434% on base effect. CEO Cook may greet clients as at Apple's first store in India. WTO panel rules against India in IT toys through with EU others. Infosys slides 9% on Dell revenue forecast. High rates raise SME loan default risk. VR Logistics plans 697 pounds growth just to buy 1,067 trucks in financial year 27. Once completely operational, the unit can make 3 lakh ACs and 6.5 lakh compressors a year. Everyone revises for its flying allowances. Can win 9 out of 9, says Delhi Capitals Ganguly. Super Giants, Super Kings match in Lucknow rescheduled to May 3. Could definitely play again and next year. One and Dhoni. Tendulkar watched his son play competitive games for the first time. Super Kings top run faced against Royal Challengers. Rupesh Shah to take on Dhruv Sitlwala in the quarters. Atletico beats Almeria to stay right behind Real in La Liga. Osimhen the key for Napoli against Milan. East Bengal outstayed after stalemate against Aizawl. Satyan Nasr back for Olympic tournament. Chennai to host Asian Champions Trophy from August 2003. Double shy for Nitya Sri and Tulasi Mathi. Text and context. Wheat procured by government decreases from a year ago period. WPI-based inflation in March eased to a 29-month low. The speed of Vande Bharat trains not reaching full potential. SIM cards activated using fake documents in Gujarat. Myanmar government releases presents for lunar year holiday. Petitions around same-sex marriage. While a five-judge Supreme Court bench is set to hear a series of petitions on the legal right to same-sex unions, a batch of updates and applications have been received from organizations across religious, social, and political lines. While weightage on the issue. The Mia's court verdict and Mariana Mazzak. Why is the court verdict being referred to as a travesty of justice? What happened in Mariana in 1987? Text and context. The last page of the newspaper. How coastal species are living in plastic debris in the ocean. So this is the last page of this. Plastic trash is abundant in our urban reviews, rivers and falls, and from the slopes of the highest peaks to the depths of the abyssal trenches. A new study by researchers from Canada, the Netherlands, and the US has reported that coastal river life forms have also colonized plastics items in the ocean. Equage and world famous monuments on the occasion of the International Day of Monument celebrated every year on April 18th. Yes, Monuments Day celebrated on April 18th every year. So this is the last page of this speech. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe to my channel and like and comment. If you guys have any comments related to the communications, please leave the comment in the comment box. And see you in the upcoming videos related to health, education, personal and emoji and more. And I hope you guys are doing great. Bye bye. Take care. Have a great day.